Hey everybody, this is Nate Smoyer, and you're listening to the Tech Nest Podcast. This is the show where we sit down with the leaders in real estate and technology to find out what they're doing to transform the way we buy, sell, and invest in real estate. If you've got an interest in real estate and technology, stick around. You're in the right place.
So Nate, this is going to be a show where you're interviewing me, so let's get right at it.
Yeah, this is weird. You've done the intro, and then I'm coming in to do the interview, but we'll roll with it since people are watching. You are watching a live recording of the Tech Nest Podcast, where we feature leaders and innovators in real estate technology to find out what they're doing to transform the way we buy, sell, and invest in real estate. That's why we've got Noel on the show. I appreciate your time and lending your LinkedIn Live cred. So for people who may be tuning in because I'm on the show, I know your people know who you are, but go ahead, introduce yourself.
Sure. Let
everyone know who you are and what you do.
So I am the Senior Vice President of Portfolio Services for Renters Warehouse. We are a vertically integrated property management, investor services, real estate company. And what I do with Renters Warehouse is a lot. I've been here for about 3 years, kind of since the beginning, not since the beginning of Renters Warehouse, but since the beginning of the new iteration of Renters Warehouse. And we are, I run all of our mergers and acquisitions, really more acquisitions when we're buying other property management companies. And that's what we interviewed on before, talking about kind of what we're doing on the property management side. Right. And I also am a big part of our portfolio services. Our portfolio services and our investor marketplace is there to serve investors who want to invest into single family rentals. And I focus on some of the larger mid-size investors that are buying portfolios, but we're in 41 markets. We manage about 22,000 homes. We manage these for 14,000 investors who all want to learn how to buy more real estate. And our goal is to really set the level of service in this space. And it's been so exciting to be in a space that has nothing. It started with nothing. Up till a few years ago, the single family rental space was somebody going to a real estate brokerage that didn't know much about investing, buying a home and kind of figuring out themselves how to invest and cap rate and yields and all that. And it's changing. And so we're starting from scratch in a very disruptive time in the real estate space with technology. So our starting from scratch is able to leverage, there's no bad habits. It's what's amazing. There's no bad habits in this space. It is ripe for investment. I mean, put it this way, we manage about 22,000 homes, and we're the largest, if not the largest, one of the largest, if not the largest third-party manager of single-family homes. And there's 17 million single-family homes in this country. So you know a lot of that too on your side of your company. So here we are.
Well, we won't totally flip the script here. I'll still be interviewing you today. We'll save that one for another day. But so what people don't, a lot of people don't know, you've been on the show previously. We'll start with that first. Season 2, episode 12. I had to look it up. It's been that long ago. It feels like a long time for me. We're on season 5 now. And so you're officially the first return guest. So extending an extra special thank you to that for coming back on the show. So you gave a great overview of Renters Warehouse, even painted a picture a little bit of the opportunity. And the opportunity, this is something that I don't think people have thought of a lot as far as size, the magnitude that exists with single family rentals. And so, but with that, you guys have gone through some changes even since the last time we've talked. You've added to the company. There's been a few mergers, acquisitions. What are some of those notable acquisitions that Renters Warehouse has done in the last year or so?
Yes. So the beginning of this year, beginning of 2019, we acquired a company that the owner of that company was near and dear to me. I've known him for a really long time. It's called Own America. Own America was a platform to buy and sell real estate portfolios of single-family homes, single-family rentals. And they mostly operated virtually and leveraged some different agents and things like that in different markets. But it was great because they were on the forefront. They've been doing this for a long time. Greg Rand, Adam Stern, two great guys who are now with our company that I work with hand in hand on a daily basis. And Greg's now the chief strategy officer. Adam is one of my colleagues as senior vice president, as well as like myself. And what we've done is we've taken that platform, Now we've leveraged it across our 41 markets where we have boots on the ground with agents in those markets. And we've gone from a property management company to a full service. People ask me what I do. I say I'm part of a real estate advisory company focused on the single family rental space, because now we're a full service investor company, investment services company. And we really use that the property management as that basis. So that was the base. We have our customer base, which is really hard to get in this space to have that many customers. We added on a real estate brokerage, and we did that. We rolled that out about March 1st. Now, as of July 18th, we've rolled out an investment portal and for research and planning. So we had that on our site, but it was kind of the old site bolted on. Now it's all new. So you can go in and in all of our markets, starting out in 25 markets first. It'll be in 40 markets by the end of the third quarter. So it is MLS data all pulled in. It is our own listings. You can search by yield. You can search by gross cap rate, net cap rate, bed, bath, market. All kinds of data, because there's so much data out there. And then we have a lot of investors. We have institutional investors. We have mid-size investors, which is really interesting in the space right now as a mid-size investor that can come in. And now you can go and look in Chicago and say, oh, great, here's a property that's a 8% return. I want to buy it. Now, previously, the only way to find that property was an investor-focused real estate agent would hand deliver that to you and say, look, here's this property. Yep. Otherwise, you go to an MLS portal, an MLS site, and none of that investment information is there. And
right. They sell the homes vacant, or prefer to sell the homes vacant.
And these are vacant. Some of the MLS homes are vacant, and then we're also going to be showing tenanted homes. And we were surprised to find out there's a lot of tenanted homes being marketed on the MLS without any data behind them. It just says, call to find out information. So we can market all those same homes. We'll cooperate with the brokers. It's obviously all the MLS rules, but.
Yeah, and I suppose that it definitely depends on the market. I mean, in some markets, selling as a single family home to someone who wants to occupy it will go for higher than the investment value, but obviously that's where finding these pockets, and this has been tough. This market that we're in right now, especially certain cities, the yields aren't available in your local areas. You've got to go somewhere else. So you guys have put together this big marketplace. You already have. You talked about it. You had that foundation of you're already providing property management services. You bring in Own America, and they're already working with institutionalized investors and portfolios. So now you've got inventory. You have the agents on the ground to help facilitate the deal who work investor first. Why all do this now? Why not wait until the market totally crashes like some people are hoping for, because then they'll be able to buy at the bottom?
Well, for one,
and I know you've got a few things to say on that.
for one, and Clayton Collins, who's listening from Housing Wire, knows I have.
Shout out Clayton Collins.
For shout out Clayton Collins. I have an opinion on that. Look, it's not the same market that it was back in 2005, 6, 7. It's driven. Our market bubble is driven by lack of inventory, and it's driving. So it's funny. We're finding a lot of people that come to us to rent a house are also looking to buy a house, but they're kind of dual tracking this. And so we might have somebody that's looking to buy a house that can't find a house they want to live in. So they rent from us, and then they also buy an investment property from us. How about that thought? So somebody comes in Seattle and they would love to buy a house. They either can't afford the house that they want, so they rent a house that they need, and then they buy a house from us for an investment purposes in Kansas City or Florida or any of these other markets where you can get some yield, or even looking in some of the tertiary markets that perform really well. So we're doing it now because there's a need, and the space is becoming institutionalized. The technology is there to do it. We've got our full services. We're in Salesforce 100%. I think the last time we talked, we were talking about being in Salesforce. Now we're in Salesforce. And so we manage everything in Salesforce, from our property management to our investment services, dashboards, all that kind of stuff. So the time is now, the need is there. I've been in this space since 2000. Well, I've been in real estate forever. I was in commercial real estate to start. I got into the single family investment space after the Great Recession. I have not seen this much enthusiasm for the single family rental space since the period of 2012 to 15.
See, I've got my own theories on that, and some of it I think you can back up. But sure. I think part of it, I mean, we hear about my folk, millennials, not buying, whether we don't wanna, can't. It's not can't. Can't is not right. True, but whether we don't wanna, and we want the flexibility, but we also want the lifestyle. So we don't want to be locked down, but we also want the lifestyle of what comes with that. You get the house, you get the yard, you can have cookouts, you can talk with your neighbor about how many horsepower your ride behind tractor, lawnmower is, but you don't have to own the house. And
and you can decide to move to Chicago and take that job you want to take, right? So
true story right there.
True story, right? So we've looked a lot into this. There's an issue with savings. The house you can afford to rent, to buy the house you want to buy, a lot of people don't have the income for it, or not the income, don't have the savings for it because they've used their disposable income on experiences. And so there's a lot out there about how it's better to have a life of experience than a life of material possessions. That being said, you can continue to rent, be flexible, and then invest. The barrier of entry to investing into a rental investment property is much lower than the barrier of entry to the house that you want to live in to buy.
Right.
And so a lot of people go crazy with Gary Vaynerchuk saying, home ownership is overrated. Well, he's got a point. He didn't say owning real estate is overrated. He didn't say investing is overrated. But why leverage yourself to the tilt so that you can live in this house and then have nothing left to invest into your future? So flip it around, invest, and then own the house. Own the house that you want, not have a house leverage owned by a bank.
Right. So, I think last year I did probably about $3,500, $4,000 in upgrades, repairs, things to a rental. I don't think I spent a fraction of that on the house I was renting.
Right.
The rent we pay is several $100s less than the mortgage on that investment property. So, it's, for me, it's a mathematical equation, but I guess everyone else is different. But so, okay, let's go back to the marketplace here, because I really want to give you guys a take on this. So we talked about, you guys are already working with institutionalized investors, but then you also have people who maybe have one or two properties. So they're looking for professional management. Are you seeing both audiences want to use a marketplace like this? Are you seeing equal demand, or is it just the people who are just trying to get into it, or the really experienced?
It's all the above. So we have on our, what we call our portfolio services division, we have more of the experienced, bigger investors that come to us. And some of them say, hey, I want to buy a portfolio. I have money to invest, or I have a 1031 exchange, or look, there's a lot of people invested in single family rentals in the right areas the last 5 or 6 years. And now they're cashing out and they're 1031 exchanging. Some of them are exchanging into a different asset class. Some of them are exchanging into a different market. Some people are exchanging out of California market and want to diversify and buy single family rentals. So you get those type of people. And then on a local level, and that's what makes this so interesting, since we have our agents in all of our markets, on a local level, you have investors who see this and they see this right now, what we're doing, and they want to invest, but they need their hand held and they need somebody to walk them through that process. And that's something that we do. Now we do that in all of our markets. And then we have some partners in markets that we're not physically in yet that can help us with that as well. And so we're trying to take the best of turnkey providers and what we're doing and kind of build all that together and have a marketplace where somebody can, instead of having to pay all of this money to have somebody tell you how and where to invest, we're giving that away for free and saying, here you go. You can do a lot of research yourself. You can do what the millennials want to do. And what most people want to do is research themselves, look at, mess around. And then when they get to the point and they say, hey, I need help with this, somebody's there to help them. And they're not, all over them about, trying to join their club and education services. So, and nothing wrong with that. There's some great education that you can get, but it's, in this world that we have with a lot of disruption in the real estate, the less middlemen there are, the better it is, because you can now go direct and it's direct to consumer. So,
I still think that there's a lot of room. Obviously we have to educate people, and there's got to be, I think, a lot of clarity brought to the surface. I often hear pushback. No. People always have to have a professional. They're always going to have someone. And while I to a degree, I agree with that, right? Every time you make a big decision, for most people, there's a little bit of like nervousness or fear or uncertainty. And so you need someone to make sure and assure you that the process is going to work. But see, this is based on the old system where all the information was guarded,
right,
and kept in books, and you had only the professional to rely on. Whereas this is the next step forward, as far as I'm concerned. This is putting everything out there in the open, for people to be able to see and evaluate and work through on their own and make informed decisions, not just based on what one representative told them just because a state gave them a license makes them qualified for that. And so that's why I love seeing this, because it puts it out there and really removes the barriers to entry. So now, you were telling me a little bit before the show started about the amount of listings you guys have. So I'd love to hear a little bit about, like, what are you doing to attract investors to put listings onto the site? What's some of the strategy behind growing the amount of inventory you have?
Well, so one of the reasons we are bringing in the MLS feeds to our site is to just make more people aware and able to go on there and search MLS properties and our own listings. But really, the only way to grow your listings is to do it organically. And that is one listing at a time. That is through relationships. That's through an army of agents on the ground that are going to all the RIAs. We hired, for example, VaynerMedia to really help teach us on how we can promote ourselves, and not just promoting our brand, it's promoting the individuals within our company, within our brand.
You actually had Gary V's agency working with you guys on some of your marketing?
Yes, we do. We actually did.
One of the real estate industry, or are there others as well?
I don't know of any others, to be honest. And it's a Sasha group, so it's a smaller business group. I mean, we're not the big brands, but it's and that's how we got this LinkedIn Live show. Was I started turning on the video in my car when I was driving, and talking about housing news that I thought was, there's great data out there. How it's interpreted is not very good. And so that really started getting people thinking and looking at things, and don't read the headlines, read between the lines, watch people like us to really help disseminate some of this information. And it's really working, because we've got guys all over the country in our company that's turning on the video in their car, talking about what they're doing for their day, what their passions are about, and not just about business, promoting their business, but talking about themselves and what they're passionate about. So and it's working really well, and we're getting a lot of traction. And we have some competitors. Roofstock is a competitor of ours. SVN is another competitor of ours. We're all different, and we're all doing something different. And we have some competitors in the property management space, and it's great. The more, the merrier. And the space is really being institutionalized, and it benefits the small investor more than anything, because the things we have to do to service our larger investors, those efficiencies trickle down to the smaller investors. The technology that we have to put in place to service them. In order for us to be profitable, we have to be very efficient, and technology drives that. It's not worth it for us to have 41 markets and all operate individually, and it's not very efficient. We have to centrally manage and do that. And so, but the marketplace is just the next iteration, and it's very exciting.
Yeah, I think it's kind of cool to see both, you guys get up and running the way that you're approaching this, and, comparing how Roofstock is doing it, because I've been familiar with them. We've had Roofstock on the show as well. Good
Great guys.
Here. And, I think that probably that's a good form of healthy competition right there. You guys will push each other, who does it better and scratches the itch.
We do business together. I mean, we've had buyers, some of our buyers buy some of their stuff. We've had some of their people buy some of ours. I mean, it's all going together. I think eventually it's going to merge together a little bit more. We talked about that a little bit before. People are building these marketplaces. Our marketplace, our MLS feed is one thing, but our listings that we have are all exclusive listings. We don't put other people's listings on our site unless it's coming directly from the MLS, and that's serving a purpose for the smaller investor. but we purged quite a few off of our site that it has to be sellable, right? So it's got to be something that somebody can come in and buy. And that's really important.
I had one of those listings that wasn't sellable. Actually, I had a few, but then we won't go down that rabbit trail. So what's been some of the early feedback from some of your customers? I mean, because this marketplace is less than a year old, so it's very new to have the amount of inventory you have, the amount of traction you have. What's some of that, the early feedback you're hearing so far?
Well, the feedback's been great. I mean, we before we launched our new site, so we'll see how the traffic goes, but we're getting about 5,000 unique visitors a day onto our marketplace. And that was without doing anything to it. That was just bolting it on the way it was. And so, and I see all the leads coming through. We get a lot of new investors that want to invest into real estate. They're not interested in paying for a expensive education program, and it's hard to weed through and find the right ones. And they're yearning for knowledge. A lot of people that live in more expensive markets that want to invest, they see the benefit of owning, and a lot of them are our own customers that come to us and say, hey, I want to sell my house. It's like, why? Well, because I've had it for 5 years and it's gone up in value. Okay, great. So you should own it for another 10 years or 15 years or 20 years and then buy more and create a portfolio. And so the feedback's been great. We've taken a lot of feedback to make some changes on our site, to make it a little bit more intuitive, to bring in more data and information, because we're not making promises. We're not selling houses and saying, hey, you're guaranteed you're going to get this rent and guaranteed this kind of, we're not that. And that's not what it is. And that's not what real estate investing is.
I mean, there's no guarantee in any investing, and but that's one of the beautiful things about real estate, and I don't want to harp on this, but this is one of the things I get most passionate about. It's a real thing. It's tangible. It serves some of the most basic, fundamental human needs and desires that we all have: a place to call home, a roof, a shelter, a safe place. And so when we package that up together and we can create business models like this that enable newer investors to get an opportunity to have something like that, I think that's amazing. That's really great in so many angles. Let's shift a little bit here. So, I'm curious though. Of all the different, you guys are across, you said 20 some markets already?
Yeah, so we're in 41 markets.
41 markets.
But
okay.
So we have quick history. We used to be a franchisor.
Right.
We're invested into private equity. We bought back most of our franchises and acquired a bunch of other companies. And we still have a few franchisees left that we service fully. We don't do any more franchises, but those are going to be the second phase adopting into our site. So it's all together. But yeah, 25 right now as far as the MLS feeds, but we're in 41 markets.
Got it. So where, for the people that want to purchase properties that like you have on the marketplace, where are you seeing the most growth? Where are you seeing these properties that are still have enough room, so to speak, to make something back? Where are you seeing the most growth? So
we're seeing it in that Rust Belt, Midwest, Southeast areas. I mean, well, the other thing that's interesting is I'm seeing growth in the second and third tier markets. So if you take the top 100 markets, take the bottom 50, because of the barriers being taken away and because of less friction to be able to buy, sell, and trade. Because one of the purposes of creating these marketplaces, and everyone who's doing it, is to create this more liquidity. So to enable you to sell your investment faster creates more interest in investing in the first place. So taking down those barriers makes it much easier to buy and sell. And so now what we're seeing, investors, whether they're small investors, mid-sized, large investors, are now looking at all markets. Because the question
finally, one of the things that helps Memphis has always frustrated me a little bit, because it's like, it feels like, when you go into a gas station in some areas where they have the casinos in the gas station, they got the quarters on the edge that are being held on by the magnets. And it always looks like the quarter's about to tip over. That's how Memphis feels like to me.
Right.
The price is right. The rents are there, but will you ever be able to get out of it? Will the property ever appreciate? And the ability to have some increased liquidity might increase people to come into those markets, right?
Right. Well, and you have to do your research. I mean, look at a market like Memphis and understand the rental saturation, understand how many investors are buying there. In a market like Memphis, you have to be really picky about where you buy and who you partner with. Memphis is a great market to buy from a turnkey provider, but you need to think about what you're buying and understand what you're in. And if you're buying it for the appreciation in anything shorter than 5 to 10 years, then I wouldn't recommend it. But we don't recommend that in anything we're doing. If you're buying now, buy for the long term. The market's going to go like this. Your investment's going to go slowly like this. So it's, Memphis is one of those markets that it was a great opportunity. People just jumped in. They still are. But look around Memphis. Look in the suburbs of Memphis. There's some great opportunities. Look at all of these tertiary markets. You can go in and buy. You don't have to create operational scale. The thing that people used to come to us before, I mean, when I was doing this, way before, when it was, in 2012, 15, people come to me and say, okay, what market is the next market that I have to go in and create scale and operations and all that? And we'd say, okay, let's research a bunch of markets. And we research all these markets, try to pick the right ones. Now it's like, hey, we're in 41 markets. And those aren't the only markets you can invest in. There's another 41 markets that would probably be good markets to invest in. You can buy one home in each market, buy 5 in one, 10 in another. It doesn't matter. You don't need that operational scale anymore. The efficiencies are there. And that's whether you're a single investor buying 2 or 3 properties, or you're an investor that owns 1,000 and wants to buy 1,000 more. You can go in multiple markets, and the technology's there to operate in those markets.
Got it. Yeah, I feel like there's... And that actually kind of makes me think of it like another point or question for you. Like, so, and maybe this is something you guys have thought about. Like, obviously, you guys are going to have a little bit of an advantage. You're collecting a ton of data. Will you ever use that or leverage that as like a product that people can subscribe to or buy into? Of course.
So the hard part about our data is it's limited to the properties that we manage. So you sometimes have to be careful, because somebody might come to us and say, okay, you guys manage 2,600 homes in Kansas City. Well, what's your average this, and this? It's like, well, first we have to compare the like homes to your portfolio. And that's what's interesting in real estate. So it's more about, now our data is very valuable because we start to see trends and things like that. But now taking other data and mashing it all together and really looking at that is important. That's one of the things that we're doing on our site. So you can start to, on our research center, and I'm not trying to plug what we're doing, it's just something I think is interesting. You can go in and type in accounting.
That's the whole point of me interviewing.
Right. Well, yeah, I know. But still, you can now research markets and see gross yields. Because that's the for those of you that are newer to investing, net yield is one thing, but my net yield and how I calculate that, and Nate's net yield and how he calculates that could be totally different. Sure. So the gross yield is much simpler because it's just the price and the income of the property, and it's just very basic without thinking about all the expenses. And we run into this all the time with larger funds. They have higher operating expenses. You would think because they're bigger, they have lower operating expenses, but they don't. And people ask me how they can compete with large funds. Is that when you're a single investor, you can push down your operating expense much more than a large fund who has all this overhead that they have to manage.
Yeah. You outsource things on Fiverr or Upwork, or you cut it and you don't do it anymore. So, right. Yeah, I want to ask you about something, because obviously, both of us have a pretty strong passion for real estate, and we work in this. You guys are working directly with property owners and helping them take on, or you're managing their properties, you're caring for their investments, and we're helping people who want to do it hands-on. Mm-hmm. And right now, dominating a lot of the news, and I don't like to get into newsjacking or political topics on this show. I haven't done that yet. I'll save that for a whole nother show. But there's a lot of talk about affordability, housing crisis, and depending on how you want to slice it up. I saw articles saying the median national rent was $1,400, and that might be true, and I couldn't argue with it. I know in places it's cheaper, but I know in places it's way more.
Yeah.
Here's the question. and this is kind of a big one. I know I'm throwing this on you. Didn't really talk to you about it. But what responsibility do prop tech or real estate tech companies have in solving the affordability challenges?
That is a tough question, because the affordability is really born out of supply and demand. So more people want to live in single family homes. You can overbuild apartments all you want, and that's not going to help the affordability issue. And we're seeing that in some cities where they're overbuilding apartments, but the single family rents are staying high because people want to live in a home many times. Most of the time they get to a family, they want to own a house. But as we see with the new world marketplace and global marketplace and how things work, people want to be mobile. Some of the biggest impediments I see to affordability are the regulations, the municipality regulations, the impact fees, the cost of labor, the cost of materials, all of those things you can track back to a political side of things and supply and demand. And that's why this hot market is different than before, because it's born out of demand. And so there's not going to, all of a sudden, everybody's not going to say they don't need a house. Even if there is a recession, there's still a demand for housing. There is not enough housing in general. I think
it's a basic need.
It's a basic need. And I think what's interesting are the baby boomers. And I've read a lot about this in Chicago, where you have baby boomers who's decided that they want to live in their houses forever because it just doesn't make sense to sell and buy a new house. And so they're retrofitting their homes for later in life, and those values of those homes are going to be worth less when somebody wants to buy it and live in it with their family because it's been fitted a certain way. There's been a lot of articles in Chicago, and then you're seeing a lot of a lot of baby boomers who are selling their houses and moving into rental housing because of the way the taxes are and way they can, owning that house isn't as advantageous to them, so they can rent, figure out other tax strategies. But baby boomers not moving out of their homes is a big issue. And the homes that a lot of the baby boomers are living in are not homes that millennials want to buy. People are
too big.
What's that?
Too big.
Too big.
I don't have time for cleaning that many countertops and cabinets.
Right. So yeah, your mind is going to change when you get married. And I don't know if you're married, but when you get married, you have kids, and you decide you want to go live in the suburbs. You may want a little bit bigger house, but that may not be your demand. The world we live in now is more about the experiences, which is great, because a life of experience is better than a life of material objects, in my opinion. So there's a lot of things happening. I think there's going to be an opportunity in the coming years for those larger houses as rental products, because you can buy the prices. I mean, that's where the market's pretty soft in those higher end houses. And
the rise of multi-generational housing and leveraging McMansions to outfit those, I think, could be great.
Absolutely.
Especially in places that have the full tall basement. I mean, and obviously the legislation changes in Oregon, enabling for multifamily in single family.
Minnesota as well. Yep.
Oh, Minnesota did something similar.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. They stripped away the zoning. So there's a lot of.
It's not an immediate fix.
No, it's not an immediate fix. And that's why, there's some markets that are going to suffer. Some markets, it's funny, you read a lot of the news articles and they talk about, housing softened, and they use Seattle, San Francisco, San Diego, New York, and a couple other markets. It's like
growth markets that have the slightest cooling.
Yeah. And it's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Well, no joke, because those markets have just gone insane. And of course, common sense. But overall, there's still demand. The responsibility, though, back to your question, the responsibility of property investors and owners. Yeah, the regulations that's coming about which I think is an issue with people who, there's some managers or some landlords who take advantage of tenants that, for example, let's say it's a tenant who always gets his paycheck on the 10th of every month, and they live paycheck to paycheck, and then the rent's due on the 5th. And so their rent isn't $1,500, it's actually $1,600 because they're getting charged $100 late fee every month. So things like that. But enabling rent control and stuff like that. I mean, just recently, Blackstone announced that they bought a $5 billion development in a multi-unit development in New York, and they were in the middle of renovating it, and they stopped. Now they're only going to do the minimum that's required by law because they can't raise the rents. So that's one extreme. I think there's a responsibility. I think there's an opportunity in that affordable housing world, a huge opportunity. But the fact is that people have to pay rent. Subsidized housing doesn't necessarily work. And there's a lot of people who can't rent a house because they've had an eviction put against them, and there's no way to know if that was a proper eviction or not. But if you're a landlord and you have a tenant that doesn't pay, you also have to pay your mortgage, and you also have to pay bills. So
I have responsibilities. I'm going to mitigate risks, and that's too high a risk for me to take.
Yeah.
I get it. Yeah, I appreciate you trying to tackle that one. I think this is one I want to bring more into the conversation because, it affects us all. And I hear the heart behind a lot of founders and leaders in this space. And I think this is connected to it. It gets right back to people. It's real. So,
one comment I have on that too, why don't we reform our college system?
Oh my gosh.
How about that?
Yes.
What would that do to our economy? Now I'm not going to speak to should we forgive student loans?
We should pull public funding out of it, but that's my opinion.
We've created a system that is disabling our future generations, disabling them. And that's as extreme as word as I can get. I mean, it is hurting the future of our country by doing the things that we're doing to it.
I'm fortunate, but we put together a lot, and I grinded real hard. But in last year, I paid off almost $40,000 in student debts within the last year. Not even the last.
But you're fortunate. You're fortunate to be able to do that. A lot of people can't.
No.
They're going to die with their debt.
Yeah, and actually, one of those loans was at actually two of them were over 10%, and I could not refinance, could not restructure because of the way they were written. And when I took out those loans, I was 23 and 24, I think. Yeah. I did not know what I was signing. I didn't have someone with my interests in mind, and my college absorbs none of the risk. They have gotten paid hand over fist. Yep. And truthfully, if you want to talk about predatory real estate property managers, it is the colleges. They're not in the education game. They are in a let me over rent small cell game. But that's a whole nother story. But that's one of my favorite topics.
I love to talk about it. I can go on.
All right, let's shift to a more fun thing. We're going to go into a segment you're actually familiar with. You've gone through this before, but maybe some of the answers will have changed. This is a game I like to call For the Future. For the Future is the segment where I get to ask each guest that comes on the show to give their best predictions based on the following 4 questions. Noel, are you ready to play?
I'm ready to play.
All right, let's do it. 1 year from now, what does Renters Warehouse look like?
1 year from now, I think Renters Warehouse will have a very mature marketplace to buy and sell investment properties. I think that, I'll predict that we are going to be doors under management, maybe double what we have. Whoa. And that's knowing some inside information there. I think, there's been a ton of things happening in the iBuyer world. So watch out for that with Renters Warehouse because it's the model's been proven. And a comment on iBuyer, to think that Zillow and Redfin and all these guys are the first iBuyers, they're not. It's been around for a really long time. Those investors that come to you and say, I'll buy your house right now for X because they see the upside and they see that, not everybody wants to go through that long process. And so we just stay tuned for that as well in the near term.
Wow. All right. A little teaser right there. Clayton, if you're listening. Question number 2, what's the housing market look like 1 year from now?
I think we're going to see 5% appreciation throughout the next year overall in the housing market. I think that, eventually a recession is probably going to come, but I really, really, really highly doubt I would be willing to bet a lot on it that's not going to be caused by housing. I think that you'll see some markets softening. Wages can only go up so high. Values can only go up so high. There's something has to give. But I think there's going to be more regulation that's going to come in to reduce the regulation and the barriers of entries for builders to build. I've met with a lot of builders, a lot of really big builders, that they would do more if they could. The reason they're shooting at the top or higher end of the market is because of the cost of doing business. So if we can strip away some of those things, I think that people are becoming more mobile, that people are living in and moving to more of these markets that have opened themselves up to business, that are not debt burdened states and counties and cities, that they, it just we're way more mobile. I mean, when I left Chicago 4 years ago, the idea of working remote, people thought I was insane. Now I'm working remote, and I've been doing it.
Oklahoma will pay you $10,000 to move there if you're a remote worker.
Exactly. So our world is changing. The question's going to be is when we look back at what is the new normal, what's a new normal in housing starts, what's a new normal in home sales. I don't think looking back any further than the last year or two is really does you can't look back during the recession. You can't look back before the recession. There is a new normal, and I'd be interested to understand what that's going to be.
Yeah, I agree. I love the charts that always go back to 2010 to prove a point on investment values. And it's kind of like, well, that's not a skewed point at all. Yeah. No. All right. Question number 3. What's one industry trend you think will continue, but you wish would go away?
Realtors complaining about their commissions being compressed.
Whoa. So you don't continue, huh?
Look, again, there's efficiencies, and there's efficiencies in everything. And so the trend of there's a lot of things happening in the real estate brokerage world and disruption. This is talking to somebody who we just started a real estate brokerage.
I was going to say, you just started a brokerage. So you're not just talking about this from the outside looking in.
Correct.
You're getting right in there.
Yep, exactly. And I just think that a lot of changes are going to happen. And the real estate agents, listen to me, you have to get with the program. Take advantage of the technologies that are there, become more efficient, accept the iBuyers, accept all of those programs. I mean, we've just seen Redfin and what was it?
Open Door partner together.
You're going to see some more partnerships like that. Trust me on this. And the lines are getting blurred. It's no longer that somebody goes and calls a realtor and says, I want to buy a house. What somebody does, they look online, then they get contacted by a lender. Then that lender refers them to a realtor. Why do you think some of the major lenders are all becoming licensed real estate brokerages around the entire country? Because I
have been following that.
Follow it. So look at Loan Depot, look at Quicken Loans, and a couple others that haven't announced yet that are creating these national brokerages. They are not yet, I don't know if they ever will, not yet are they hiring a bunch of agents, but what they're doing is they're referring. So they have gotten really good at taking people at the top of the funnel. So you need to create value. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot that comes from the commission lawsuit. There is fallout from it because it's put a spotlight on the commission on buyer commissions, and so
they're negotiable.
What do you think? Everything's negotiable. So if you don't bring value, you're not gonna be successful. So bring value. Specialize in a lot.
Yeah, that's one thing that doesn't happen a lot in the real estate agent world. Honestly, I hear people say, well, you never know, someone might be ready to buy. I'm like, well, that's not a business plan. That is totally hoping. You need to dial it down. All right, we'll get to question number 4 here. What's one thing you believe will dramatically change or fade away in real estate as a result of technological advances?
I think just the friction. You can now, and it's happening now, the one thing is that you can go online, buy online, communicate everything virtually. Real estate transactions no longer happen with paper signed documents. That's obvious. That's gone. But commercial real estate right now, they're still dealing spreadsheets. It's insane. There's still a lot of disruption that's happening. So I think it's going to fade away is that, what I think won't fade away is that you still want to have somebody walk you through a process. You want to have a professional, somebody that you trust, say, you're doing the right thing here. But there's less friction with that. And so
it all changes though. I mean, if it's a vacant unit, you don't have to have someone walk you through it. Right. You don't have to have someone walk you or open the door because they don't know who's walking in. You can verify beforehand. And in fact,
absolutely,
you probably see this as a way better lead generation model.
Oh, it is. And in fact, you can verify a tenant and qualify a tenant and have them do an application before they even walk in the door. And then
all your listings.
They don't even have to be escorted by somebody. Now, our company, we always do that because we want that personal touch. But there's some markets where it doesn't make sense. In Chicago, for example, if somebody calls you and says, "Hey, I want to look at this place right now," and it's 4 miles away and it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon, there's no way you're going to get there, and you're going to lose that customer because they're going to go around and find something else. So you want to give them access. So those types of things and the data behind it.
Shopping in Chicago again, man, it was terrible. It was so painful. It's horrible. All right, we're winding down here. We got the last 3. We'll start off with this one. Noel, these are all about you, so your people and my people can get to know you better. What are you reading these days?
What am I reading? So I have a book here I'm reading. That is
Never Lose a Customer Again.
Yes. So it's more about the relationship side of sales.
I love it.
And it's great. One of my favorite books that I've read several times is Mindset by Carol Dweck. Yes. Yeah. Incredible book. I believe that mindset is the driver of everything that you do, and having a growth mindset, you will always be successful. I believe, so I read a lot, I consume a lot of information. I love podcasts. I listen to all kinds of podcasts. I love Gary Vaynerchuk. A lot of people aren't quite sure what to think about the guy, but it's pretty amazing. But yeah, anything that, I have children and teaching my children to have a growth mindset and not be fixed in their thinking, and that somebody tells you you're not good at something and then you believe it for the rest of your life, and you've agreed with that, which gets into the book, The 4 Agreements, is similar. So just, living that growth mindset and realizing that what you choose to do and your mindset behind it will dictate whatever happens in your life, and your experiences are more important than what you own. And your material things are less important than having a life experience. So
that's good. I love it. Question number 2, who are you learning from?
So Gary Vaynerchuk, I learn a lot from. I learn a lot from my kids.
Learn how to negotiate.
Yeah, learn how to negotiate. And I learn a passion for life. But I try to learn from everybody. I try to keep myself open to learning from everybody.
Very cool. And last one here, what inspires you?
Giving and sharing my passion and knowledge with others. That inspires me. I'm inspired to always push myself, and that's why I'm active in sports, and I ski race and I play rugby and I do some crazy stuff like that. I'm inspired by, I live in a beautiful place. I'm inspired every time I walk outside and look at the world and realize that you don't have to be bound by many of the things that you believe that you should be, or believe you have to be bound by. You're the master of your own domain. I know it's a cliche, but you can choose to do what you want and be happy. You have the choice. So that's my inspiration.
That's very cool. Well, we're gonna close out. Noel, this has been amazing. Awesome. Thank you for bringing me onto your platform. And this episode, if we get edited in time, might be live for people who listen to podcasts the following week. But I appreciate you in your time and sharing all that you share. And I love watching the progress of Renters Warehouse. You guys are doing something special.
I appreciate it. And LinkedIn Live, look at Nate and add him to the platform.
Let's do it.
He does some great things. So I'm an advocate. Nate, I really appreciate it. And I'm going to have you actually on my show, and I'm going to interview you soon. And we're going to talk about what you're doing at Avail. So really appreciate it. And all right, we'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
All right, we'll see you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening to the TechNest podcast. Hey, don't forget you can get on the email list so you never miss an upcoming episode. That's technest.io. That's technest.io. Get on the email list. Go to the App Store, whether you found us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, wherever you found us. Leave us a 5-star review and share it with your friends. And if you've got a guest or someone that you'd like to recommend, or if you think that you'd be a great guest on the show, hey, send me an email, nate@realteampanda.com. That's nate@realteampanda.com. See you guys later.